following presentation has been funded by the Geyser Foundation. We watch so you don't have to.
There is more of everything in Russia these days. More cars, more fresh fruits and vegetables, more meat, and imports galore. Swiss sausage, American soft drinks, French and Italian fashions, casino gambling, and even contraceptives. There are now more choices than ever before, but people lack the money needed to make purchases. President Boris Yeltsin's free market reforms have brought the world to Russia and hyperinflation. This woman complains she cannot afford to buy a scrawny chicken for dinner. Less central control of the Russian economy, a lifting of subsidies and price supports caused prices to rise more than 2,000% last year. Inflation has hovered in the double and triple digits ever since. That has caused great hardship for people, especially the elderly, in Russian towns and villages like Krasnoyarsk. Every day, 63-year-old Galina Boduliova journeys to the local food store. She finds her government pension of 400 rubles per month, little more than half a dollar, buys less and less. Hunger breeds nostalgia for the days of Khrushchev and Brezhnev.
We lived very well. We had good food, we had good clothes, everything was great. But now we cannot live because we have no money, we have no place to live, we have no food to eat.
Residents of Krasnoyarsk complained to CBN News about crowded and unsanitary living conditions. This man was anxious to show us a leaky roof in a hallway and unsanitary conditions in the communal bathroom of his housing complex. 30-year-old Sergei Zimin, his wife, and 2 sons live in this one-room apartment here. While Boris Yeltsin's changes have caused some hardships, he thinks the reforms need to move faster. He prefers capitalism over communism.
Before, I could not own the apartment, I could not own my truck, I only could work on it. And now I can own my apartment, I can own my dacha, I can own my truck, and I'm going to open my own little business.
But not everyone here is as eager as Sergei Zimin to embrace capitalism. These communists think Yeltsin and the reforms must be stopped.
Yeltsin is guilty for all this trouble.
Fewer Russians support Boris Yeltsin now than did before his market reforms began. There's a feeling of apathy here. Most people say they're just sick and tired of politics and politicians.
I don't trust anyone. I don't care about politics anymore because I'm so sick of it and I'm tired of it.
CBN News traveled to Moscow University to hear the opinions of students. These are the future leaders of Russia, those who will shape and move this society in the years ahead. Most were not even born when Nikita Khrushchev pledged communism would bury the West. They barely remember Brezhnev. Gorbachev's glasnost and Yeltsin's reforms are their experience. Several advocated Russian nationalism, a return to a strong, powerful Russia.
We think we have to fight and with the weapons. That's the only way.
This student said he supports democracy.
Well, I'm sure that finally we'll build the normal society, normal capitalist society. I'm an optimist, you know.
But what should President Clinton and America do to help move Russia forward? Tren Moss was the first American restaurant in Russia. It opened in 1989 and is co-owned by Trenton, New Jersey businessman Jeff Ziegert. His advice to President Clinton? Help American business help Russia.
Maybe the thing is to give small to medium-sized corporations low interest rate loans to stimulate them to come over here. This country does not need $24 billion. This country needs businessmen to come over here with money.
So Russians are feeling real pain and hardships as their country moves forward toward a market economy. Their problems are numerous and complex. There are no quick fixes, no easy solutions. And time and Russian patience may be running out. Apathy may eventually turn to anger.
Russian people are very, very patient, but when they get mad, they can break everything. If we start fighting, then we will fight to the death.
On night patrol with the police officers of Moscow's 116th precinct, Sergeants Nikolai Petrushenkov and Igor Gusev are answering a call in one of the rougher sections of Moscow. A man is reported to be terrorizing his wife. The woman is badly shaken, and the police try to sort out what happened. The woman says her drunk husband threatened her and broke all the phones in the flat. She decides to press charges, so the police take them down to precinct headquarters. The man is booked and thrown into jail for the night. Hardly the violent crime Americans are used to seeing on the 11 o'clock news. But make no mistake, the Soviet Union is in the grips of a mammoth crime wave. And we're not talking about domestic disputes either, but endemic levels of corruption, bribery, and prostitution. The reason is simple, according to former Soviet economist Yuri Maltsev. Soviet life is in a free fall, having degenerated to a very basic level, the daily desperate search for food and clothing.
Instead of, I don't know, developing culture or technology or medicine, they are desperately looking for food and other basic necessities of life.
But even the basic necessities are becoming out of reach for many. These poorly made Soviet shoes cost more than 1 month's wages. With inflation running at close to 100%, Soviets are scrambling for ways to make more money. Glasnost and perestroika have brought Soviet citizens a small but increasing taste of Western-style freedom. But they've also brought some long-simmering Western-style social problems to the surface. Perhaps none bigger than crime, but it is the type of crime symptomatic of a socialist society where everyone owns everything and nothing, and where shortages of even basic items have reached historic levels. These people, thousands of them, are engaged in criminal activity on a Sunday afternoon right in the middle of Moscow. This is the Soviet black market. Hardly the back alley scene you might expect. The atmosphere is closer to a county fair. People are here to buy and sell, even military men and police officers. But the party's over when the riot police show up. The crowd is warned to go home or be arrested. This woman says she doesn't want to have to sell on the black market, but she lost her job and has no other way to feed her child. Amid the rising chaos, it has come down to the survival of the fittest. And a very effective instrument of survival in the USSR is the bribe. Bribery is the way things get done in the Soviet Union. It keeps this young black marketeer out of jail. How do you operate on the black market without getting arrested?
Yes, see, if police have seen, if I sell something on the street, if police have seen it, I must pay them 100 rubles.
Their prospects limited, an increasingly popular career choice for young Soviet women is prostitution. At the Cosmos Hotel in Moscow, where Western tourists are housed, the lobby is crawling with women selling themselves. By law, they're not allowed in the hotel, but they pay the doorman a set price to get in. Here, a hotel guest gives his room key to a young prostitute after he names the right price. If one of these women can earn $100 for a night's work, they'll have earned a year's salary by Soviet standards. It has become a society where the honest citizen could starve, while the corrupt forge a new wealthy class. The Soviet Union has been likened to a huge prison with its doors thrown open and the convicts running amok. There is, of course, hope that somehow this nation will stabilize. But the seeds of corruption, hatred, and social decay have been sown, as one Soviet put it, by 70 years of lies. And the prospect of what may lie ahead for this broken-down, volatile society has many observers worried. It's a strange, almost surreal sight to visiting Westerners. Soviet punk rockers walking down Nevsky Prospect in Leningrad. When the punkers see a Western cameraman, they try to act American. These are members of what Soviet commentators have dubbed the Lost Generation. Cynical, disaffected youth who see no future for themselves in a Soviet Union falling apart. Some fear that this might be a glimpse of the anarchy that may lie ahead for the Soviet Union. But what they're finding would make a lot of Westerners cringe. Without a guiding ethic or ideology, the Soviet people have become willing consumers of anything and everything new, including a lot of Western junk culture. Heavy metal music is popular with many Soviet young people, and state television obliges with a daily diet of MTV-style rock videos. Hardcore pornography, non-existent before perestroika, represents more than a novelty to curious Soviet men. The Soviet Union is undergoing its own sexual revolution. Different surveys have shown the typical Soviet woman has between 6 and 13 abortions during her lifetime, usually without anesthesia. Homosexuality, while still on the books as a crime, is more openly displayed. Still pervasive in Soviet life is alcoholism. Any day the weather's nice, you'll find long lines of people buying vodka at state shops. There are at least 25 million alcoholics in the Soviet Union, although those familiar with this nation's drinking habits suggest that figure is probably low. As they come to terms with their nation's dark and bloody history, a good many Soviets are repudiating it altogether. Here at the gates of the Winter Palace in Leningrad, young men wear the uniform of the old Tsarist army and sing the same camp songs as those sung by the White Russian forces who battled the communists in 1917. It is an astonishing sight in what was once a tightly controlled police state. With the very basis for its existence, communism, now discredited, the Soviet Union is in the grips of a profound spiritual crisis. For proof, one need look no further than the nation's youth. When we talked to some of them about their country and communism, what they expressed was a complete lack of faith.
There's no need in communism now for us, because for 70 years we could see what it has done for us, what communists have done for us.
I can't see the results. Only one result, it's getting worse and worse. The life getting worse and worse.
In Leningrad, our CBN News camera captured this woman apparently trying to drag her son away from a punk gang he had been hanging around. It is a metaphorical image of a country that seems to have lost control of its young. There are shortages of almost everything in the Soviet Union, but one commodity not in short supply is hatred, bottled up for 70 years and uncorked by Mikhail Gorbachev's policies of glasnost and perestroika.
Practically everybody hates everybody else. And they have a lot of national tension. The ethnic groups are against each other. Armenians hate Azerbaijanis, Azerbaijanis Armenians, Armenians hate Georgians. Everybody, as usual, hates the Jews.
On the streets of Moscow or Leningrad, it's not unusual to see discussions on national issues turn into heated arguments. Our attempt at a group interview with people in Moscow's subway system almost ended in a melee when two men, one of them spouting racist and anti-Semitic slurs, started swinging at each other. The men were hauled away by police. The intense hatred between different groups is one of the most dangerous developments in this unraveling empire. And some fear it could be the fuse which sets off a conflagration. The Soviet Union is faced with a myriad of problems which together threaten to tear it apart. What lies ahead? Eventual stability and democracy, or anarchy and military rule? In Russia's past, revolutions have started over less. But as one Soviet said, it's hard to predict the future in a country with an unpredictable past. The Soviet Union began in 1917 as communism's grand experiment. The dream was a socialist utopia. But what communism has wrought in this land looks today more like a socialist nightmare.